We have a couple of items on our agenda. For our first one, we have House Bill 723. Welcome to committee, Representative Erickson. Please state your name and then the time is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Marco Erickson, it's good to come to your side again and be here. It's been a while. And I'm from District 33, Idaho Falls, Idaho, for the record. I appreciate it. This bill that we're presenting before you, House Bill 723, is several years in the making. So I'll give you a little history in the background of where it started. And what happened was a few years ago, we had a report that was from a lot of mental health facilities and some of the really egregious things that were happening and taking place inside the facilities. So we had many conversations, and we said, well, let's put together a study and see if JLOC will do the OPE study for us and find out and look into this a little further. So we got that through. Senator Winthrop was part of that, and we got a study, and it was the top priority. It was the number one picked item that year from the committee, from the JLOC committee. So we were real excited to get that, and this summer the report came out. So if you haven't had a chance to read that report, it was the State Oversight Committee's report on children's residential care. And inside, oh, bless you, inside this bill, we were lucky to be able to address most of the issues that were put forward in that report, several of them. So I'll go through the bill real quick and tell you what it does and does not do. So what it does is we're going to create 4 new sections. One of them is a quality care oversight by the department. Just enhances the oversight that they're already doing. Just gives it a little bit more teeth and helps them to be a little stronger in their oversight with those facilities. Like I said, they're already doing most of that stuff. It's part of their daily practice. But consulting with them, they thought that would be the best way to do is put that language in the bill. So then we also wanted them to have individualized service planning and documentation. So they weren't just creating these cookie cutter plans for every kid, because each person that comes in those mental health facilities are different in the way they interact with each other. And this is the part that gets a lot of interesting feedback. Is we call it the Youth Bill of Rights. This is what you call a lot of things, but what it is, it's more than that. It's like you could also call it a client set of rights, or you could call it client protections, right? You could call it a patient bill of rights. Heck, it could be named anything. We just called it a youth bill of rights because that's who's in those facilities, and they're being put there by the parents. What was happening before was some really egregious things, and we said they have the right, when you place them inside a facility, not to have those things happening. Like, for example, if you had a broken arm, that they would fix your broken arm. Or, there were cases where there were wrists being broken and they let them sit there for several days, or putting them in solitary confinement away from other people for weeks at a time, or forcing them to shower in front of other people. Things like, there were some really strange things happening, or holding them down for several hours in a restraint when you could. And think all of this was happening without parents having any knowledge that it was taking place. So we wanted to protect that, and that's where we created that 4th section, which was critical incident reporting requirements. So we defined what a critical incident is, and when this is happening, that you are to report that to the parent and guardian of this youth and make sure that they're involved in the process right away within 1 business day. And we made sure that we didn't trample on the current code, which requires all mandatory reporters to report certain types of things that happen with children. So we didn't change that at all. But one other thing I wanted to point out is what this does not do. It doesn't set any new precedents on how we define anyone's rights. We didn't do that. We had no desire to do that. All we wanted was to protect children from when you're being placed in a high-level residential treatment facility because of the reports we were having on the ground and what was happening in Idaho. I think you'll probably hear some testimony from real people that have experienced that. I heard several hundred pieces of testimony, and I tell people, you don't need to hear all those. I went through that process, and I heard them, and they were egregious. And that's why we brought this bill forward. We're very blessed to be a part of changing history and making it to where the next generation of children don't have this happen to them in the future. So with that, committee, I appreciate your time, and I'll stand for any questions.
We do have some testifiers, but you're welcome to ask questions if you'd like. Senator Blaylock?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Erickson, good to see you. When I look at the rules that we have in place in IDAPA, it looks like everything that is in this bill is in the rules, but we're not necessarily moving rules over. Can you explain what the difference is and why? I know you had expressed some concern of situations that were horrible, all the testimony that you listened to. Did that happen prior to these rules being put into place, or?
Representative Erickson.
Madam Chair, Senator Blaylock. Yeah, thank you so much for that question. In consultation with the department, when we brought some language, they thought it would be best if we just took what they were doing in those rules and put it into the bill to make sure that it was codified so all those facilities were on the same page. They were already trying to implement, and a lot of that had been in place long before, but the oversight piece is what we strengthened and given the families their ability to report and to have a piece of paper handed to them when they go to the facility that will say what those are. So both the parent and the youth were informed of that, and they had a phone number to call. And we made sure that we put it in a way that it was already existing within health and welfare, so we didn't have to create a new system and have a fiscal note tied to it. So it was really great because they were already doing a lot of that work. So it was in place. It just wasn't as strong as what it will be now.
Follow up?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So in the paper and the number is like the children's rights and then the number of reporting for incidences. Is that the missing piece here?
Representative Erickson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, that is part that was missing, is there was no previous set of rights in that manner that spelled it out for the parent. Because I view this as a parent's bill of rights in a way, because parents were going without knowing these things were happening to their children inside these, and sometimes they would never say anything because they were afraid. They didn't know better. They didn't know and so they thought that was just how it was and how they were supposed to be treated, and it caused a serious amount of trauma. And now with this, the parents will have they'll have a way to say, hey, this didn't feel right. Oh, this was a violation of this particular right I had inside this facility. And again, I want to remind people, it's only for people inside those facilities that parents have said, I'm going to place you here, or guardians temporarily. And so it does a better job of protecting them and making sure that the parents know what took place when there was a serious problem.
Okay. Senator Zeiderfeld.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Representative Erickson. So on page 2, on lines 5 through 7, just the 39-1210A, it talks about conduct an annual unannounced inspection. And so we're talking about residential homes mostly, because it's, residential care facilities. I'm just kind of worried. Does that kind of cause a problem, like with the Fourth Amendment, where we're not supposed to have illegal searches and seizures? So, because I'm thinking, without it being announced, they're just going to show up in their home unannounced. Does that violate our Fourth Amendment as far as having illegal searches?
Madam Chair?
Representative.
Good senator. No, this is not for their home in any way. And so what it is the licensed facilities who are licensed to have children inside their facility. What happened previously is they would go in and they would do inspections, and sometimes they would tell them they were coming. And so what we wanted was, these are surprise inspections, so you don't know that the state's coming, and they're going to say, look at your files and maybe interview some of the teens and youth in the program and get information. And that way it couldn't be controlled by the staff of that facility, and they would be controlling it and picking their favorite person, and also making sure that their favorite file was being handled. So when it's unannounced, it's just like the state showed up, and these are licensed care facilities under the state, and they have a contract with the state to do that work.
Madam Chair?
Follow up?
Yes. So to me, it doesn't matter if they have a license. To me, we're actually doing a unannounced inspection, which to me, it seems like it's a illegal search. Usually, police have to go and get a warrant, and they have to, if they're going to go in and do that. And I know this is like an inspection, but it's also a search. So you're searching for something. And so I'm kind of a little bit leery on that language.
Madam Chair, I would assure you that it's not
Representative.
the case at all in that. I would tell you that would not be the case. It has nothing to do with illegal search and seizure. It's 100% just to know what's going on in those facilities. And they're not searching for anything. They're just looking at files and talking to staff and to youth. So thank you.
Senator Lenny.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Erickson, I have a handful of questions, but the first one is this bill, I read it 2 or 3 times. It goes through, it says the department shall develop a youth bill of rights, penalties, set penalties and define violations after we vote on it. But if this has been several years in the making, why, we do bills with penalties and violations and stuff like that all the time. I'm curious as to why those aren't in the bill, because it's like they do in Congress all the time. Well, we have to vote on the bill to see what's in it. So I don't want to vote on this and then have them do all this stuff afterward that maybe I'm like, ooh, I know we review and stuff, but just thoughts on that, if you don't mind.
Representative Erickson.
Madam Chair, if you look on, thank you, Representative Lenny, if you look on line 36, these are the enforcement mechanisms. So they have the corrective action plans. That's one of the things they do. They try to work with people. They're not in there to say, gotcha. They'll say, you have a violation here. We need you to submit a corrective action plan. And that gives them an opportunity to correct and not have any future violations. They can issue sanctions, or they can withhold payments if they were not complying and constantly having serious violations. And then also, if it's a crime, that would go to the child protection anyway and to child abuse, and it would be a different story. For example, when we had a case in northern Idaho of a facility that had sexual abuse take place, that law enforcement would take over that report because that is a requirement. And they can't just give a simple consequence of their own. That would be a law enforcement referral. If they were to find that was taking place and a kid said, hey, this has happened to me, one of these staff abused me in this way.
Follow-up
Okay.
question?
Yeah, another question. With the line, page 1, line 31, it talks about evidence-based and uses evidence-based and trauma-informed language. Those obviously have specific meanings. That language is there for a reason. I'm wondering if developing this bill, if you've talked to, I know some of these facilities are like faith-based. I'm wondering if they had input into this, because I know like things like biblical counseling, some of them use prayer, stuff like that aren't typically considered evidence-based or trauma-informed, and I'm worried that maybe a facility, like a faith-based facility, could be doing good work, but since it doesn't fit these definitions, maybe the department leans too heavily on them. I don't know if the faith-based facilities chimed in on this or not, or if you have thoughts on that.
Representative.
Madam Chair, they didn't have to, because under the current law, they're already protected. I mean, we had some bills a couple years ago on health and welfare. We made sure we protected those faith-based facilities. And number two, they get licensed to do their business and operate. And if they could pray, they can do all those things normally. That's part of their evidence-based curriculum. That's fine. Evidence-based is usually related to the clinical methods, but prayer and spirituality is a part of that growth. And so there is no violation if they're doing that. It'd be a different story if they were a normal facility that was licensed and they were forcing kids to do things that they weren't comfortable with. That would be a different conversation, and they would probably be allowed to opt out in those kind of situations, and it would be fine. That wouldn't be a violation.
One more.
Last one. Well, I guess we have all day, right? So with the fiscal note, it says, zero cost claim. This seems like a pretty heavy lift for, I think there's a lot here. So I'm wondering why that's free, or does the IDHW already have this capacity, or they're doing this to some extent? Then my question would be, why do we need the bill?
Representative.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate that question. I honestly went to them and asked that specific question myself, and they assured me that they could fulfill it the way it was written under their current capacity and the current work they were already doing, and so that's why we left it that way. Originally, I had another approach I was trying to take, and they informed me if you do that, it will cost us money. And so we went with what Health and Welfare had suggested to make sure that we had a zero fiscal impact, and knowing that this building was struggling financially this year. So and it's not really adding a lot of new duties. It's just helping clear the air and make sure that they're following putting this in place they hand them a piece of paper that doesn't take a lot of extra step. So that way the family knows that their rights. And then that one piece of unannounced visits, they are already doing the announced visits, and they have the option of doing unannounced already. But this is saying we want you to do at least one unannounced, so that way they're not, because we don't want what was happening, like I said before, is there were people who would come in and they would pick their favorite clientele, or they'd pick the best of the best charts, and it wouldn't allow the department to maybe do their job the best. And if I knew a child had an issue there, I might want to spend some more time interviewing that particular youth and find out a little bit more what's going on. I might also want to interview the staff. And I don't want the facility picking their favorite staff that they know, so for fear of retaliation or anything. So that way I can interview them and I can get an unbiased conversation and learn what's really going on inside those facilities and make sure we protect the kids the best we can.
Senator Bjerke.
Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative Erickson. I do like the intent of this bill. I had a family member that was in a facility that experienced some very difficult trauma, I would say, in this stage during that time. And while I like your intent, I have a few concerns. I don't really see cause of action, a stricter consequence, because even with the surprise visits or the critical incidents reports, I sort of feel like this doesn't do enough to achieve the goal that you're wanting to, which is a really great goal, and I love that, but I just don't see that this is going to make that much of a difference. I feel like there's a lot of ways to get around the reporting, surprise visits, keeping kids intimidated so maybe they don't feel comfortable sharing, things. So can you speak to that a little bit, please?
Representative.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just think that we closed the gaps with the bill and the conversations we've had with all the partners. We've closed the gaps on the report that we were given by the State Oversight Committee, and we wanted to just make sure we close those gaps, and this bill and the language did close those gaps.
Thank you.
Senator Zeiderfeld.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just one more question. So I'm reading on page 2 again, and line 24. It says, conduct other activities as it deems appropriate. Can you maybe give us some examples of what other activities could be?
Representative.
I'm going to thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just going to take a second to read that part. I should have probably put a note on what that would be. I don't remember why that language was put in there, but I know it was as deemed appropriate by the department. There could be something that they do inside child protection or inside the mental health licensing. The people who do the licensing, they conduct activities that are specific to audits, and it could be a language that helps them do their job. So I'm not 100% sure. I apologize for not having that exact answer.
Any more questions? Okay, thank you. We have some people that would like to testify. Gillian Cochran. Welcome to committee, Jillian. If you would state your name, and then we have a timer of 2 minutes, but we'd like to hear from you. Thank you. Could you hear us okay?
Yes, I can. Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you.
Chair Van Orden, Vice Chair Bjerk, and members of the committee, thank you very much for the opportunity to testify. My name is Jillian Cochran, and I'm a Canadian citizen. I'm here as a survivor of multiple youth residential treatment programs in Idaho. I attended the School of Urban Wilderness and Survival twice during my time in the residential treatment programs many years ago. Luckily, the program has since been shut down. What you need to know is that the stories that I've heard from other survivors today are very similar to my own. Different names, same abuse. And this is still happening. My parents thought that the youth residential treatment programs in the U.S. would be very helpful for me. Instead, I had experiences that no child should ever have. These places claim to help and provide treatment for children and their families. My personal treatment included seclusion and isolation, restraints, forced and incorrect medication, medical neglect, unsafe living conditions, and retaliation when I would try to speak up, as well as verbal and physical abuse. I had no communications with my family that was private. One of the communications I was forced to endure during my treatment was to speak on a monthly basis with one of my abusers. I was told that if I continued to communicate with him, I would realize that the abuse that I was alleging was simply a figment of my imagination. Our calls were listened to, and all of our written letters were read and redacted by staff. During my time in residential care, I spent multiple months at various placements. I was one of the longest term residents of Sioux, Idaho. Term so long, in fact, that I had to be removed off premises from the program for 4 hours so that they could continue to have my treatment process. What we need to do is not debate if the children deserve safe and effective care and accountability, but we should be ensuring that they have it. Thank you for your time and for taking action to protect the other children.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions? Thank you. Thank you for being with us today and sharing your story. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Next, we have Jessica Hayes. Hello, Jessica. Thanks for being with us.
Chair Van Orden, Vice Chair Bjerke, and members of the Senate Health and Welfare Committee. My name is Jessica. I'm here today in strong support of H723. I grew up in Idaho and I still live here today. I was a normal teenager. I skipped class sometimes. I was boy crazy. Once I stole scrapbooking paper and makeup with a friend. My parents loved me deeply and they believed they were doing the right thing by sending me to a youth residential treatment facility. Instead, I was taken unexpectedly from my grandparents' home by two men I had never met and transported to a facility where I was told I would get better. I was terrified. When I arrived, I was forced to undress, shower, provide a urine sample, and be physically inspected by a staff member barely a year older than I was. From that moment forward, the program did that daily, and it relied on tactics that were not therapeutic. Isolation from my family, sleep deprivation, public shaming, pressure to confess humiliating experiences, and other forms of abuse that would take me longer than 2 minutes here to describe. We had no private way to contact our parents or report abuse. Every time I tried to tell an adult or even my parents that I was not safe, I was punished or the phone line was cut. H723 addresses gaps like this by requiring clear oversight and confidential ways for youth to report this abuse without fear of retaliation. My parents were not negligent. They trusted the professionals. My parents are trusted professionals. I'm the daughter of an educator. They believed they were helping their daughter and they were heartbroken when they learned the truth. Parents deserve transparency. They deserve to know their children are safe when they seek treatment. I know too many people from this program who have later died by suicide. It's a number far beyond anyone else I know. I know that is not the outcome of safe, effective care. No child should need treatment for the treatment they receive. H723 introduces basic safeguards, real oversight, confidential reporting for youth, and accountability when things go wrong. These protections support ethical providers, protect families, and most importantly, protect children. Idaho has the opportunity to lead here, and I urge you to support H723 and vote yes. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We do have a couple of questions. Would you like to take some? Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. We have Senator Wintrow that would like to ask a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Ms. Hayes. Thank you for sharing your story. I really appreciate hearing from you. I don't think you mentioned the name of the program, and I don't want to make you uncomfortable by doing so publicly. However, I mean, if you wanted to share that, but what year was this, and was it in Idaho?
Yes, Hayes.
It was in the year 2010. Oh, I'm not.
You're fine. Proceed.
I'm supposed to say something first, but yes, thank you. I was a resident of Idaho, and I did not know where I was going. I was actually taken to Utah, northern Utah, from Idaho. And after I was discharged from that program, I moved back to Idaho and was still under supervision of that program, I guess you could say. My parents had to live by the rules, and so did I.
Follow up?
Yes,
There's
thank
a
you.
follow up.
Yes, thank you,
Oh,
Madam.
and
Go ahead.
in 2009 through 2010.
Madam Chair and Ms. Hayes, thank you so much again for sharing. I know that's not easy to relive some of that, and just really appreciate you taking the time to share.
Thank you.
Committee, do we have any more questions? Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you for sharing with us and being with us today. We really appreciate it. Okay, committee. Next we have Vienna Supon. Welcome to committee. Please identify yourself for the record, and then the time is yours.
Chair Van Orden, Vice Chair Bjorky, and members of the Senate Health and Welfare Committee. My name is Vienna Supon, and I attended a residential treatment facility in Idaho from August 2022 to February 2023. I'm here to strongly support H723. On August 1st, 2022, at 3 o'clock in the morning, 3 strangers forced me into a van and flew me 2,000 miles away from home to a residential treatment program in Idaho. I felt terrified, violated, and like I did not have control over what was occurring. My parents sent me away because I was struggling with depression and anxiety. They believed that they were helping me, but none of us could have imagined the horrors I would endure in that place. During my time in treatment, I witnessed and experienced neglect and abuse that has stuck with me. I watched my peers attempt suicide, run away without staff knowing, or being denied medical care. There were times when I was forced to undress and shower in front of male staff members or use the restroom with someone watching. My program also established strict measures of control that force clients into compliance, such as restricting food intake, placing residents in solitary confinement, limiting communication with people outside of the program, and weaponizing therapeutic techniques. Toward the end of my stay in 2023, I almost successfully completed suicide because I thought being dead was better than staying in my program. It has been 3 years since I left treatment, and not a day goes by where I don't think about my time there. I might have come back, but I did not come back the same. H723 is a necessary response to the ongoing issues with residential care in the state of Idaho. Had this bill been law when I attended my program, my peers and I might have left with healing, not scars. Regulations that control the quality of care, reduce the prevalence of malpractice and abuse in these facilities, and provide youth and families with safe and therapeutic interventions. Treatment should not result in trauma. I respectfully urge the committee to support H723 and vote do pass. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Committee, any questions? Seeing none. Thank you. Thank you for being with us today, Vienna.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, next we have Caroline Cole. Please identify yourself for the record, and then the time is yours, and we do have a timer.
Great. I will work on projecting my voice. Hopefully, I was a former cheerleader, so I'm going to channel those skills right now. My name is Caroline Cole, and I'm the Strategic Advocacy Lead for Paris Hilton's organization, 1111 Media Impact. Thank you so much for allowing us to speak with you all today. I want to acknowledge the work that's being done in Idaho to address the trauma that kids have experienced in your state. Thank you to the legislators and to the department for taking this seriously. With that said, H723 is really a common sense bill that will make a significant improvement for children in care. In our work, I've had the privilege of speaking with thousands of people and their families who have all experienced residential treatment programs, and their stories are really all the same. You have a family in crisis, searching for answers, and they turn to professionals who say that they can help them. Putting everything on the line, they make the most difficult decision to send their children away to a residential program to get the help that they need. But all too often, what we see is that many of these children return home with new maladies to heal from. When I speak with these parents, I hear the regret, I hear the inner guilt that they have for putting their children in an environment that harmed them. And as a mom myself with 2 children, no parent should have to live with that. I will say the most common question that I get asked when I speak to these families is, how is this treatment legal? And the answer is that it's not, but abuse prospers when there's no transparency. And I will say that is one of the most important factors of this bill, is thoroughly defining critical incidents so that there are proper reportings to the state so the state can do something about it, and also ensuring that we're asking the right questions when we do site inspections. And I'm sorry, I know I'm over time. I have just one more thought to share on this. And so the provisions in H723 are modest but effective. We have seen them be very effective in other states who have had very similar issues. This issue is not unique to Idaho. This is rampant everywhere inside of this industry. So here at 1111, we believe that sunlight is the best disinfectant. After all, we cannot act to protect these children if we don't know what's happening to them. So I urge this committee to support H723. This bill is very needed in Idaho, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. So no questions. Thank you for being with us today. Thank you for the information. That's all the testimony we have. Representative, would you like to close?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think it was kind of interesting, Paris Hilton and her team. I think they sent you some, really good testimony from her as well. I mean, these are things that aren't just, if you know what I've worked in the background in mental health, and I've seen a lot of horrible things, but when I heard that first time, I had to step up and do my duty in this building to try to protect that generation. And you've heard testimony. I think this bill does that. It gets us there. It doesn't hurt anything. It just keeps us moving forward to the next step. And we're always looking for improvements, and we're happy to have suggestions down the road to even do a better job. But I really think that with this bill, if you allow it to go through, you get to help change the lives of these future generations and help these children to not experience some of the things these other people have. And I just appreciate your time, and thank you.
Thank you. Okay, committee. Senator Seiderfeld.
Yes, Madam Chair and Representative Erickson, if you would take one more question after hearing the testimony, would you be okay for that? Is that okay?
Yes.
So, listening to all of them, can you tell me what are the ages that are going into these residential facilities? What's the age that they're going in?
Representative.
Madam Chair, thank you for asking that. It really depends on the facility and their type of licensure and what they accept. Of course, it would be a parent, usually it'd be a kid of a certain particular age, like 12 and above most of the time, but some don't take even that young. Some say 14 and up. Some, for them to take an 8-year-old or a 2-year-old wouldn't be the case. So it would be according to the licensure that they've been licensed with the Department of Health and Welfare. So I'm not really privy to know exactly, but I do know most of them are older teenagers, in that age range.
Senator Bierke.
Madam Chair, is that okay if I ask just a quick question? Thank you. Representative Erickson, the last speaker mentioned that other states have passed similar legislation. Can you tell us which states those are?
Representative.
Madam Chair, I'm not exactly aware which states it is. I do know right now, this session, there are 8 states working on very similar legislation because it's a problem. And we were lucky to get a report to tell us that we needed to do that. And so we kind of let out. And I think that their organization works with other states. And I think the last time I had heard anything, it was 7 or 8 other ones. Yeah.
All right, committee. Okay, committee, we have House Bill 723 before us at this time, is before the committee. Senator Wintrow.
Madam Chair, I would move to send House Bill 723 to the floor with a due pass recommendation.
Is there a second? Second. Okay. It's been moved to send House Bill 723 to the floor with a due pass recommendation. Is there discussion? Senator Wintrow.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The reason I made that motion so quick is because as the co-chair of JLOC, and that report, when it came out, was jaw-dropping. And the entire JLOC committee was very much interested in what actions could be taken to address the recommendations. And in fact, there was a committee meeting here just a week or so ago where I asked about the tensions that existed and had we actually move things along to address that report. And so I'm just so pleased to see that you have taken that so seriously and you followed the guidelines of the report. And I think you struck balance. I mean, some people would like to see you go farther. Some people don't want to see you go quite that much, but you're right there in the middle looking at the safety of children. And if we need to do more going down the road or less, we can do that. But I think this is a great step, and I appreciate your hard work. I know you worked with a lot of stakeholders, it sounds like, so thank you.
Any other comments? Senator Zeiderfeld.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just for comment, when I came in, I was actually going to be a no, and now I'm on the fence. So now I'm sitting there thinking, why do we even have residential facilities if they're abusive? Maybe we should just get rid of them if there's so much abuse there. But I was also looking in and doing a little research as you were sharing and listening to the testimony. There's about 31 residential facilities that I could find, and some of them are actually where they take private pay and also Medicaid. And so I think this is a bigger issue that we need to look into, because if this is what's taking place and then it's going and they're being sent there under Medicaid, this might be something even bigger that we should look at. So maybe we shouldn't even fund them at all or allow them to use Medicaid at all. If there was just a lot of information there. So if I do vote for this, I'll probably reserve my right to change my vote on the floor after I do more research.
Thank you. Senator Bierke.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative, for bringing this forward. It's a serious subject. I think your bill's a great start. I'd like to see a little more consequence for people who don't follow the Child Bill of Rights that you have set forth. I think I'm going to be supporting your bill, but I do reserve the right to change my vote on the floor. I want to do a little bit more research, so thank you.
Senator Lenny.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be a yes on the bill. With that said, I do think it does. I was asking these questions earlier because nobody talked to me about this bill before committee, which is odd. If it was it's a pretty heavy lift. I wish someone would have talked to me. I would have had a lot less questions. So, but I think it does still kind of give IDHW kind of a blank check in some regards, but I've also known people who have, similar to the people who testified, who've gone to these facilities, and I saw a documentary called Hell. What was it called? On Netflix. There's something called like Hell Camp or something like that, and that's horrifying. And that's this exact industry. So I realize the abuse that goes on there. But yeah, I'm going to be a yes because to Senator Zeiderveld's point, we've seen a lot of fraud go on with stuff that's funded by Medicaid and whatnot, and I think I'm interested to see what they find in that regard too. But I mean, the main reason is there has to be some parameters and we have to have some eyeballs on what's going on in these facilities. So I'm going to be a yes.
Okay, committee. Any more questions? Seeing none. All those in favor of sending House Bill 723 to the floor with a due pass, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Thank you, committee. Thank you for being with us.